Some netizens in the comments section pointed out that the Modi government's high-debt economic policy is unsustainable. The Indian government spends a quarter of its annual budget on interest payments. And by 2030, this could reach 35%, far higher than the 16% in the US, 7% in China, and 9% in Japan. The interest rate is as high as 7%, and the returns cannot offset the massive interest burden. Moreover, the projects funded by this debt only benefit Modi's cronies, such as Ambani and Adani, without delivering the broad benefits that infrastructure development should bring. In reality, over Modi's 11 years in power, India's average annual growth rate has been only 5.5%, lower than the 8% average during the Congress Party's Manmohan Singh era, even after 2 GDP calculation adjustments. Before taking office, Modi proclaimed the Make in India initiative, aiming to replace China as the world's manufacturing hub. However, the reality is that after 11 years of governance, India's manufacturing sector has remained around 15% of GDP, even declining slightly. The consequence of India's sluggish manufacturing sector is that a large number of young Indians are unemployed, and low-efficiency agriculture absorbs a significant portion of the population. India's so-called demographic dividend has not only vanished, but has become a massive burden and a source of instability. In 2023, India's youth unemployment rate reached 20%. If India cannot complete its industrialization before major powers like China and the US widely adopt robotic production lines, India will lose the chance to industrialize forever. In fact, India's industrialization level lags far behind emerging economies like Vietnam, Mexico, Brazil, and Indonesia. In 2023, Vietnam attracted $23 billion in manufacturing FDI, while India only received $15 billion. Foreign investors prefer Vietnam, which has better infrastructure, sanitation, and worker quality, over India, the so-called economic superpower. Vietnam's per capita GDP is also much higher than India's, and its people's living standards put India to shame. Many Indian netizens attribute India's failure to industrialize to the country's long-standing severe corruption and cronyism, believing that the Congress Party opened the door to India's corruption. In fact, although the Congress Party had some corruption scandals, they pale in comparison to Modi's blatant collusion with Adani and Ambani, using national projects for profit transfer. Before Modi, the Indian government's corruption could be described as a bad habit. But under Modi, the scale of corruption is outright robbery. The Indian government not only diverts funds meant for public projects to support the private ventures of businessmen like Ambani and Adani, but also helps domestic companies like Tata suppress competitors and extort foreign firms, causing India's business environment to deteriorate rapidly. Many foreign companies have withdrawn from India, and those planning to enter are hesitating. The Congress Party government, especially under Singh, completed the market-oriented reform of India's economy. The so-called economic achievements of Modi's government are merely built on the success of those market reforms. Modi's rise to the position of India's Prime Minister largely stems from his packaged narrative of the so-called Gujarat economic miracle. However, a closer look reveals that this glossy report card cannot withstand scrutiny. From 2001 to 2014, Modi served as the Chief Minister of Gujarat, where the state's average annual economic growth rate was 16%, higher than the national average. However, Gujarat was already one of India's most industrially developed states with a strong commercial tradition. As a port state, its geographic location between Mumbai and New Delhi gave it immense potential. Even before Modi took office, Gujarat's economic growth rate had consistently exceeded the national average and was accelerating. Modi simply reaped the benefits of historical momentum. The so-called Gujarat model mainly focused on attracting investment, building roads, and promoting industry, but it was riddled with problems. Rural areas and agriculture were marginalized. 40% of children under 5 suffered from malnutrition. Education and healthcare were in shambles, and the Human Development Index dropped from 6th to 11th in India. Growth was concentrated in cities and industries, leaving the poor with little benefit and exacerbating inequality. This model was far from comprehensive, yet it was marketed as a panacea, a case of packaging outweighing substance. Modi excels at marketing, portraying himself as a pro-business savior, but his policies lack innovation. They merely simplified approvals, gave big businesses the green light, and relied on the vibrant Gujarat summit to attract foreign investment with fanfare. Other states could easily replicate this approach. There was nothing unique about it. However, by promoting Hindu radicalism, buying off the media to spin dreams of a Bharat revival, boasting about India becoming a global superpower, aligning with big capital, and handing out small welfare benefits to the poor, Modi quickly rose to power, leading the BJP to dominate Indian politics. In Modi's eyes, the Congress Party is corrupt, weak, and incompetent, and only he can lead the Bharat Empire to greatness. In reality, under his leadership, India is rapidly heading toward isolation and bankruptcy. Modi's series of provocative actions against China have met with strong retaliation from China. While acting as a watchdog for the US, he has been repeatedly humiliated by Trump. Additionally, by betraying Russia, India has become the only country on Earth with poor relations with all 3 major powers. India has the world's highest tariffs and is the only major country not part of any free trade agreement. It has poor relations with all its neighbors and lacks a single true friend globally, making it a global orphan. As China and the US accelerate the implementation of AI industries, particularly with China's rapidly improving robotic production lines, we will see many basic jobs replaced by robots in the next decade. India's reliance on call centers and software outsourcing is also shaky in the face of AI. The infrastructure built with high-interest loans under Modi is likely to be unprofitable and unable to cover interest payments. It is almost certain that by the end of Modi's 3rd term, India will be on the brink of bankruptcy, teetering on the edge of collapse. At the end of the video, I want to say to the netizens of the Bharat Empire, for now, do not compare yourselves with China, nor with Malaysia, Indonesia, Mexico, or Brazil. The gap between you and Vietnam is already stark. A more realistic comparison would be with Bangladesh. It is striving to catch the last train of industrialization, and perhaps its future will be brighter than that of the Bharat Empire. As for Pakistan, do not worry about it. It has already secured a ticket on China's express train. Once infrastructure projects like the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor are completed, Pakistanis will quickly march toward modernization.